Following initial successes within the capital city of Isis, the rebels on Onderon began making their way into the planet's Highlands to begin carrying out a lengthy guerrilla campaign against the Separatist occupiers of their homeworld. The successes that had occurred during the rebel campaign within the capital city of Isis had led to massive unrest among the civilian population, who began carrying out their own minor rebellions and large-scale riots in the streets of the capital city. This alarmed Separatist leadership of the planet, including King Rash, who was the acting monarch of Onderon, and resulted in a significant Separatist response on the streets of Isis. However, midway through this response, Separatist forces received intelligence on the location of rebel forces within the mountains. A decision was made, a rather risky one, by Separatist command at this point. They would send a majority of the droid army on Onderon into the mountains with hopes that destroying the rebel force amassing there would lead to an end to the civilian unrest, seeing the destruction of the rebel faction on the planet. As such, a massive Separatist army departed the capital city of Isis, consisting primarily of B-1 and B-2 battle droids, supported by a smaller number of commando droids, and a number of armored assault tanks filling the armored role. On top of that, a new Separatist weapon was to be deployed in this attack, the HMP gunship, a highly capable droid-operated low-altitude assault craft which was capable of laying down withering fire against ground forces. The objectives of rebel forces in the coming battle would be to destroy the primary Separatist army and survive this Separatist attack, hopefully leaving the capital city open for further rebel operations. Meanwhile, the Separatists sought to destroy the growing rebel army in the woods to crush the rebel morale, and capture King Dendeb, the former king of Onderon, who was now leading this rebel faction. The droid forces marched into the battlefield in parade formation, with the infantry forming large blocks of B-1 and B-2 battle droids, separated by rows of armored assault tanks, usually in groups of 2. They marched in parade formation down the sole path leading to the highland regions of the planet. This large formation moving in the open made it easy for rebel scouts flying in the air to locate the advancing Separatist forces and warn the rebel army in the mountains of the approaching Separatist attack. With this information, the rebels fanned out into 2 defensive lines crossing the main path. This would form the main body of the rebel defensive positions. But on top of that, several small rebel squads made their way down the sides of the path and took up positions in the heavy foliage of the forests, in hopes of being able to carry out flanking and ambushing attacks. As the droid forces, still marching in parade formation, got within range of the waiting rebel defensive line, both sides opened fire, and a small arms exchange began between the B-1 and B-2 battle droids of the forward formations of the advancing Separatist column, and the rebel defensive lines, which mainly consisted of rebel infantry and rebel mounted infantry. It's also worth noting that the rebels had set up several heavy repeating blaster cannons in the area in hopes of being able to suppress the droid forces more effectively. A number of rebel militants riding Rupings, a local reptilian avian species large enough to have a human riding them, flew in from nearby cliffsides, dropping light munitions onto the Separatist forces. These absolutely decimated the Separatist ground forces, wiping out a majority of the first element of Separatist infantry, as well as the first 2 armored assault tanks of the advancing column. It's around this time, however, that the Separatists sprung their trap. The HMP gunships arrived on the battlefield, as well as a number of units of commando droids. These gunships made quick work of the rebel air forces and forced the mounted air units to land, while beginning to rain down death via turbo lasers and rocket fire onto the rebel positions on the ground. But on top of that, squads of commando droids emerged from the nearby woods, creating multiple vectors of attack against the rebel defensive line. With their forces now outgunned and outnumbered, rebel forces were forced to abandon the first defensive line, with their units falling back to the second, while command units made their way back to the nest in hopes of regrouping and resetting their defensive efforts. However, the situation only worsened, with the gunships continuing to lay down fire on the defensive positions and put the rebel forces in a trickier and trickier situation. But help wasn't far off, with the arrival of a shipment of illegal rocket launchers delivered from the Republic via a few neutral parties. The rebel forces on the ground were now able to engage the ray-shielded gunships. Distributing the rocket launchers to the forces on the front line, they were quickly able to shoot down one of the 4 gunships, forcing the other 3 to withdraw, while one of those 3 broke off and swung around the side to carry out an assault on the nest itself, in hopes of capturing or killing King Dendeb. With this assault going on against the nest, rebel leadership was forced to take a squad of infantry and return to the nest in hopes of driving off this separatist assault. With the downing of that gunship and the destruction of the commando droids dispatched to the nest, the rebel command center was once again secured. However, as rebel forces regained their foothold in their own command center, the droids sent in the other 2 gunships to attempt to carry out an attack. Both of them, however, were engaged by man-portable air defense units, man-pads, which had been provided by the Republic, and both were shot down before they could carry out their attack run, with both gunships crashing, one crashing within the nest's confines. With the destruction of the gunships and a majority of the Separatist ground forces now driven back, the battle in the Highlands could be declared a rebel victory. Ultimately, the battle in the Highlands would prove the linchpin that would unravel the entire Separatist occupation. With a mounting cost in droids and equipment, the Separatists opted instead to withdraw their forces from Onderon, abandoning King Rash's government to his people after King Rash was executed by retreating Separatist forces. This ultimately led to the liberation of Onderon and Onderon's eventual joining of the Republic, just in time for the Republic's downfall. All of this, however, occurred thanks to a successful rebel attack in the heart of Isis, the capital city of Onderon, and if you'd like to learn about how that attack was executed, which ultimately destroyed a power generator, I'll leave a link in the upper right-hand corner to my battle analysis on that. And if you have any other engagements you'd like to see covered in future episodes of Battle Analysis and added to the archive, you can let me know down below in the comments. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.